cover as to what is happening in the Middle East. And yeah, we're going to be getting our guest on the line right now. Remember, you can watch the interview as well via facebook.com/Radio Al Ansar. You can actually watch us as well. Well, joining us now is Professor Jeff Halper, an Israeli anthropologist and former head of the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions based in Jerusalem. Jeff, good evening and welcome to Radio Al Ansar.
Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on, and good to see you as well. Great to have you on, sir.
Okay.
So, Professor, what do you make of the current situation? You know, it's been a while since we've spoken. We spoke on the early onset of the genocide, and is he still there? Oh, he's still there. Okay. We spoke on the early onset of the genocide in Gaza. What had transpired? A lot has happened since then. A lot more has happened in the Middle East. What's the situation on the ground right now where you are?
In terms of the whole Middle East?
Yeah.
What's happening in Israel?
No. Let's talk about the wider issue. I mean,
we've seen the wider issue. Okay. I mean, it looks like, as you said before, it looks like there's a ceasefire coming in with Iran. Trump was very hard, especially on Israel. So in a way, I mean, that seems to be sort of resolving itself. Now we're a little bit going back, even in Israel, to the issue of Gaza. You know, the real question is more, will this be a way of then bringing the Gaza issue, a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the hostage issue into this equation of a wider peace agreement or ceasefire agreement with Iran? So that, at least Gaza is beginning to be really come into the picture a little bit. Nonetheless, Israel feels that it's won, it's made its point, and so on. So I think, the way I see it, there's actually a really momentous thing happening in the Middle East. Right. And that is that, there used to be the Arab-Israeli conflict. And the Arab governments, certainly the Arab people, support the Palestinians. That goes without saying. And the Arab governments used to do that as well. Now you have a situation where there's sort of a co-hegemony emerging. You've got Saudi Arabia and maybe the Emirates and Qatar to some degree emerging as the economic hegemons of the region. I mean, much more than Egypt, that used to be sort of the center of the Arab world, I think is moving now economically, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and Qatar. But they're coming into a co-hegemonic relationship with Israel, because Israel's emerging as the military hegemon of the Middle East. So there's an alliance here. And the odd man out, of course, was Iran, that both had religious issues with the Sunnis, the whole Shia-Sunni kind of a split. And also, of course, the Iranians were really the only really active government that supported the Palestinians. I mean, Qatar to some degree. Qatar was supported Hamas, which is true, but wasn't really that actively involved like Iran was. So what Israel did with Iran was two things. It for itself, it eliminated Iran and its proxies like Hezbollah and the Houthis to some degree as real military rivals in the Middle East. In other words, the military hegemony has moved completely to Israel. Iran has really lost, I think, that status. And within the wider Arab world, in a way, it felt that it did a service to the Sunni world by eliminating this Shia rival at the same time. So now you're beginning to get, I think, a Sunni Israeli, if I can put it that way, alliance here, in which the Middle East is moving towards this pro-Western, neoliberal, kind of valueless kind of situation here, in which the Arab peoples are being disenfranchised, and so there's an alliance on a government level between the Arab governments and Israel, leaving the Arab people and leaving the Palestinians outside.
But Jeff, can we really say, for certain that Israel has proven its military hegemony in the region? Because this is for the very first time that we had seen images coming out of Tel Aviv and Haifa where buildings being struck. Now, Israel has done, has carried out campaigns in Lebanon in 2006, Syria for no more, over Gaza over the last 2 years with little retribution, no retaliation whatsoever. But this time around, it was a completely different story. Now, news reports also coming out that it was actually the Israelis that asked for a ceasefire or tried to push for a ceasefire as well. And perhaps even that's the reason dragging the Americans into it so that they can bomb these nuclear facilities, which was a way out for the Israelis. So can we really say that the military dominance reigns supreme at the moment?
I think you can. I mean, it's wishful thinking. You could, there was damage that some Iranian rockets did get through. Something like 40 Israelis were actually killed, and maybe something like 1,200 were injured, or something like that. So there was, it did penetrate, but in no meaningful way in a military sense. It didn't do major damage. I think Israel's 3 domes that kind of protected themselves, and I think Israel really did deal a devastating blow to Iran. So from that point of view,
because the Iranians are claiming victory also. They are also saying that they had dealt a blow and their objectives have also been met.
I know, but it's kind of symbolic, for to tell you the truth. I don't want to sound, in a way, for the Iranians, or for those that are against Israel, sort of any blow that succeeds in denting Israel is a victory. But if you look at it in the bigger sense, what really is a significant military blow, or something that would really change the political situation here, or something else? Iran was not even close to that. So I think we have to cede to Israel military superiority. I don't know why that's so hard to do, but the question then is, well, what does that mean in terms of Palestinians? I'm looking really also at the issue of the Palestinians. What does it mean to have a supreme military hegemon like Israel, with these autocratic regimes like Saudi Arabia and the Emirates running the Middle East? What does that do to the Palestinian people? What does that do to the Arab peoples in general? And that, I think, is really my concern. I think the fact that Israel is so strong is what's giving strength to the more reactionary elements in the Middle East.
So military superiority or the lack thereof, as it is quite debatable. That aside, of course, we look at the issue of the Palestinians. But before that, let's talk about the U.S.'s role in this. Now, we know the Gaza genocide has been dragging on for close to 2 years now. Very little interest coming through from the United States and the European Union, as well as Arab states, in order to end it. So what does it say about the leverage the U.S. has over Israel now, where Trump can seal a deal overnight to end the war with Iran? And also, what do you make of this rebuke that he had done, and in very foul language, as well, as you have he dropped a bomb of his own? So
that's right.
What does that make about his tone? And actually, laying some blame as well on Israel for the very first time. That's unprecedented. And the influence that he has and the leverage that he has to end this, and how that could translate to ending the genocide that we see that's ongoing.
He could have ended it when the day he was elected, if he wanted to. Trump lives, we talk about this all the time, so I won't go into it. Trump lives in a transactional world of deals. It's all him. It's all deals. He wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He gets up in the morning, he talks to this person, he goes that way. The next morning, he talks to somebody else. He has no strategy, he has no analysis, he has no direction. It's all him. And in that situation, I think he was interested in getting into a deal with Gaza, with Witkoff and that whole thing. When that proved difficult, he moved on to the Ukraine that he could solve in a day. And when that proved difficult, well, he moved on to more domestic stuff. And now Netanyahu kind of took the initiative on Iran, and now he has an easy victory. So now he comes in and he drops a bunker buster. And there's no policy. You can't, so he could easily end things. I don't think he's interested. I don't think he's pro-Israel. I don't think Trump gives a damn about Israel at all. And you could hear it in the tone of his voice. If Israel plays the game and advances his interests, fine. Like, for example, the very attack in Iran that he opposed originally, but then he got into it and he wrote this Truth Social thing. We now control the skies of Tehran. He's an opportunist like that. But I think I don't think there's any consistency in his policy. I don't think he's pro-Israel, anti-Israel, and I don't think Gaza matters to him. So if Witkoff and his advisors manage to put Gaza in, fine. Otherwise, as Trump has said himself, he doesn't really care. He'd just as soon send the Gazans to Libya and build a Riviera there. So Trump is this wild card that really messes up everybody.
Yeah. So we have a U.S. administration that doesn't really care about Gaza. We have, Israel flexing its muscles, as you mentioned, this alliance with Sunni Gulf monarchies and Israel, which is, of course, going ahead. So coming back to your earlier point, where does this leave the Palestinians in this whole equation?
It leaves them completely out. They're not even at the table. And the big danger, and this is really where Israel and the United States and Saudi Arabia are on the same page, is normalization. We don't talk about it. It's a term we don't use very often. It's a dry, gray academic term, but this is the end game. Zionist settler colonialism ends not with a victory, it ends by being normalized. You take Israel and all its settlements, you stick the Palestinians in a little Bantustan on some islands on 15% of their homeland, and then you normalize. Saudi Arabia recognizes Israel, the Arab countries recognize the United States, then Europe will fall in, and then it's over. Normalization is a closure. This isn't going to go on forever. And after normalization, there is no political space. Now the Palestinians will come. They're not even being consulted. This is a state-state deal. Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United States, the Palestinians aren't even being consulted. They'll come back later and say, well, what about our rights? We can't live in an apartheid regime forever. And the answer is going to be, hey, this has been normalized. It's over. We're moving on to Sudan. We're moving on to what's left of the Ukraine. The Palestinian issue is gone. It's over. That's I call normalization the biggest danger to the Palestinians since the Nakba in 1948. And this is the part of the equation that isn't being talked about. And this is really where Trump and Netanyahu and bin Salman in Saudi Arabia are all on the same page. And this is something that we should be talking about and monitoring, in my view.
Jeff, very briefly, with regards to the situation in Gaza, what do you think are we likely to see that will happen, in the coming days? I know we have no crystal ball. We all want to see this craziness and this mayhem end. But what are we likely to see? Because we know the world's focus had shifted from, Gaza and what was happening there. And the onslaught continued whilst everyone was watching Iran. But now that seems to be on the back burner, will, the focus be on Gaza now? And what are we likely to see happen there?
Well, that's the problem. I mean, on the surface, it'd be easy to get to a deal. The deal being that, there's a permanent ceasefire, the war in Gaza ends, and all the hostages are returned. That would be the thing. But what Israel has other conditions. Hamas has to be completely demilitarized, disarmed. Right. The Hamas leaders have to be sent into exile. Basically, Hamas has to cease to exist as a political movement, and it's not going to agree to that. So the question is going to be: is Trump? I mean, does he care enough? And that's where, if it's a part of the Iranian package, it might help. Does he care enough to put pressure on Israel to say, look, I want a deal. Be more flexible. Forget about disarming Hamas. Anyway, you defeated them. And so on, and he'll push that. If it's up to Israel, they will not agree to any kind of a ceasefire unless Hamas is dismantled. Basically.
Totally dismantled. Very interesting, Jeff. Thank you so much for your time and chatting to us. Always great having you on.
Thanks.
Hope you have a wonderful evening. Cheers. Bye-bye. That was Professor Jeff Halper, an Israeli anthropologist and former head of the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions based in Jerusalem, talking to us right there about the situation in the Middle East, the broader situation in the Middle East, from what we have been seeing over the past 12 days, but more particularly from the weekend onward. And for the last 2 years, the genocide, which is still ongoing. And all I can say is our brothers and sisters need our du'as, the most that they can get.
Straight Talk is proudly sponsored by